Kuzangpo and welcome to Bhutan e-learning. This is an environmental science lesson for Key Stage 5, classes 11 and 12. My name is Pema Khandu. I, along with my 3 colleagues, would like to take you through biodiversity and its 3 types.
As we are going to study about biodiversity and its type. So at the end of this lesson, you all should be able to define biodiversity, classify biodiversity at different levels, identify some of the protected areas of Bhutan, and also explain the benefits of biodiversity for the well-being of people.
Before we start with today's topic, I would like to pose you 2 questions. What is biodiversity? Why is biodiversity important for the survival of humankind? We all have walked into the forest. As we walk into the forest, we have seen different varieties of trees, animals, and birds. What is the collective term used to define these varieties of life forms that you have seen? Exactly, it is known as biodiversity. Biodiversity not only helps to promote the aesthetic value of the ecosystem, but it is also important for the material well-being of the humans.
As we studied about biodiversity, we talked about the biodiversity and also a lot of important points as in the field video. Now it is important for us to try classifying biodiversity. Whenever we say biodiversity, we know we talk about animals, plants, everything. To get a better insight of biodiversity, it is important to classify it and then study it. So, if you look here, I have here the classification of biodiversity. So, we can study biodiversity at 3 levels, that is genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. Now let us look at genetic diversity. Genetic diversity refers to variation in the genes of individuals belonging to the same species. For example, if you consider human, we see there are a lot of, let us say, different types of people within one single population. And we see they differ in different perspectives, different ways. The first example can be the height difference, or difference in their complexion, or difference in their facial structure. All those differences are because of the differences in their genes. Well, we talked about human in the genetic diversity. To enhance our understanding, again I'll show you one simple image here, and it is about the different varieties of rice. Of course they belong to same species. They show some variations. They differ in different perspectives. This is because they differ in their genetic composition. That's all about the genetic diversity. Now let us look at the second level, that is species diversity.
Currently, Bhutan has 23 important bird areas. It has 3 Ramsar sites and numerous important plant areas. Bhutan also has numerous threatened species of plants and animals, which includes the Royal Bengal tiger, the white-bellied heron, the red panda, the golden langurs, and the Asian elephants. In terms of plant species, Bhutan has about more than 7,000 species of vascular plants, which also includes about 46 species of rhododendrons. From 46 species of rhododendron found in Bhutan, I am going to show you these three prominent species. This one is known as rhododendron grandii, this one is rhododendron arboreum, and rhododendron verbatim. So these are three important species of rhododendron found in and around Dochula Pass. As you can see, these are two distinct flowering herbs. They are different species belonging to same genus, Primula. Likewise, these three species of rhododendron also belongs to same genus but different species. As I have mentioned, Bhutan has 46 species of rhododendron. This indicates the species richness or diversity of rhododendron prevalent or existing in our country. Not only plants, Bhutan also have diverse species of birds, which accounts to about 746 species and about 800 to 900 species of butterflies. From the examples that I have stated, what do you understand by species diversity? Species diversity can be termed as different kinds of plants and animals living together in a particular habitat, in a particular locality, or a particular region.
So that was about species diversity, and it is a common observation that we see various types of species in a small area, be it around us or away from us. Now let us look at the third level of biodiversity. We can also study biodiversity by studying ecosystem diversity. So what do you understand when I say ecosystem diversity? Ecosystem diversity here refers to a variety of ecosystem. A simple example, if you take one small area, we can see within that small area there can be different types of ecosystem. For example, one mountainous area can have a river system and forests. We can consider river as one aquatic ecosystem and forest as another forest ecosystem. So when we talk about ecosystem diversity, the diversity exists because of the variation in the biotic and abiotic components of the ecosystem. So further, to classify the ecosystems can be of terrestrial type and aquatic type. So terrestrial here means land ecosystem. So to look at terrestrial ecosystem, again we can further break the terrestrial ecosystems into, let us say, forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, and also desert ecosystem. However, in terms of aquatic ecosystem, there are many different types. A simple example can be river. A river is one good example of aquatic ecosystem. So to consider aquatic ecosystems, it can be freshwater ecosystem, marine ecosystem, or let us say lake is one example, lake as a simple example of aquatic ecosystem. Now to further consider, let us look at some of the ecosystems in Bhutan. We know Bhutan has huge amount of the area covered by forest. So Bhutan, the ecosystems are dominated by forest, which means we have large portion of our area covered by forest ecosystem. It is not just one type of forest. There can be different types of forests. Simple, like broadleaf forest, can be considered as one type of ecosystem. Similarly, temperate forests are there. All these forests, different types, are different types of ecosystems. That's the terrestrial ecosystems of Bhutan.
Let us now look at the benefits of biodiversity. There are many benefits of biodiversity, but considering the scope of discussion that we are having today, we will look at 4 important benefits of biodiversity. I'm sure you would have heard people talking about having to protect and conserve biodiversity, wherein people focus at protecting the plants as well as the animals. This indicates that there is enormous benefit from the presence of rich biodiversity. So the point number 1 is it helps in minimizing the natural hazards. When I say natural hazard, many ideas and pictures might come to your mind. Can you think of some of the natural hazards? I'm sure you would have thought about an earthquake, flash flood, the forest fire, the soil erosion, and the list goes on. Of course, the biodiversity may not contribute in minimizing the natural hazards for all these hazards that we have pointed out, but definitely it does help in minimizing the forest fire and the soil erosion and flash floods. If we talk about the forest fire, in the nature there are some plants which are fire resistant. So these fire resistant plants help in minimizing the forest fire even if the forest fire occurs. In the same manner, the roots of the plants are found anchoring on the earth, which ultimately prevents the washing away of the topsoils during heavy rainfall. In that way, it helps in minimizing the natural hazard. Further, you might have seen some people planting the plants in the area which are prone to soil erosion. That is the mitigation action put in by the human being. So this indicates that biodiversity plays a role in minimizing the natural hazard. Number 2, the biodiversity also helps in maintaining agriculture and food security. In Bhutan, majority of people depend on agriculture for their livelihood, which means agriculture is very important. In order to get good produce from agriculture, we need to have proper cycle so that the plants are able to produce required or enough amount of produce. For instance, at this time of the year you can see many crops flowering. You might have seen the pea plant flowering, the radish flowering, the apple trees flowering, and for all these plants, crop plants, to produce the fruit, successful pollination is required. A place which has rich biodiversity will have rich pollinators such as bees, the birds, the insects that assist in pollination, and without these pollinating agents, the crop plants will not be able to produce the fruits that we take it as our food. Of course, the biodiversity also helps in providing good quality soil for agriculture production because biodiversity helps in nutrient cycling. The third benefit of biodiversity is it acts as a source of recreation and ecotourism for the human being. In Bhutan, you can see so many outsiders coming and visiting Bhutan. But why do you think they are coming to visit Bhutan? Can you think of the reasons? Of course, there could be so many reasons, but one of the important reasons is they come for recreation and ecotourism because they get to enjoy the rich biodiversity that we have in Bhutan. People come here for bird watching. They also go for trekking to enjoy the nature, both flora and fauna, and they also get to study the different forms of plants and animals that they can see as they travel through the nature. Through such means, the country can generate revenue. In that way, Bhutan can earn huge amount of money from the visitors. So that stands as third benefit. And the fourth benefit is the biodiversity also helps in providing both wood and non-wood products. Wood products are timber and the firewood. I'm sure you would have seen your parents going to the forest to collect timber to construct a house or maybe to make a furniture. In the same manner, you might have also gone to the forest if you have ever been to the village to collect the firewood to prepare food. So that is the benefit that we get from the forest. In the same manner, you also get non-wood products such as vegetables and herbs, and of course the animal products. Vegetables such as fern, mushroom, and you also get the herbs, and there are some animal products which assist in curing some of the illness, but of course it is illegal to extract it. So these are the 4 benefits of biodiversity.
Well, that was all about the benefits of biodiversity. We saw how different forms of life benefit each other and also benefits the ecosystem and also the society. To further add on that, we can be more specific in understanding the benefits of biodiversity. To classify the benefits, first we can say utility benefits. We derive utility benefits like we get food, we get timber, we get fuel wood. All these are utility benefits. Apart from that, ecological benefits are there. The ecological benefits include something like pollination and other ecological processes which occur in the ecosystem. The third one can be cultural benefits. If we look around, a lot of our religion and spiritual practices are always linked to biodiversity or environment. So we derive some benefits in terms of our culture. The fourth one is aesthetic benefits. So to understand aesthetic benefits, one good example is education and research. We know people do a lot of research based on the prevalence of biodiversity. Apart from that, ecotourism is also another benefit which we derive because of the presence of a good biodiversity in a particular area. That's all about the benefits of the biodiversity. Now, let us look at the conservation practices in Bhutan and also the benefits of conservation of biodiversity in Bhutan.
Conservation in Bhutan was started since 1960s. Until then, Bhutan was able to secure 52% of its land as protected areas. This includes national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, nature reserve. What's so unique and interesting about these protected areas is that they are being connected by a network of biological corridors.
After having looked at some of the protected areas, wildlife sanctuaries, nature reserves that we have in Bhutan, these protected areas are connected by the biological corridors. But before we look at the importance of biological corridors, let us try to understand what are the importances of parks, wildlife sanctuaries and nature reserve. Number one, we know that the conservation of biodiversity is very important because the species in the nature are interrelated. The survival of one is dependent on the other. For example, even if we look at the food chain, you know that the top predator is a tiger, which needs the prey such as deer, wild boar. So if there is no wild boar and deer, the tiger is not going to survive. As a result, there is going to be a huge disruption in the food chain. In the same manner, the plants also show such co-relationships, such associations. So these are very important. So besides that, the other importances are some of the plants and animals are confined to one area. They do not move to different parts of the world or to different parts of the country. Those of the species which are found confined to that particular area is called as endemic species. So if that habitat is destroyed, then there is a risk that we remove that species permanently from the earth. So that is why the conservation through protected area is required. And the other case is some of the species are native. We have some native species to Bhutan, such as Rhododendron kazangi. So these species are grown in that area, and that species in that area will play a very important role. Now that is for the plants. When it comes to the animal, for example, if we look at the yaks, you will find that during summer, when it is hotter at the lower altitude, the yaks migrate to higher altitude. But during winter, when it is very cold, what do the yaks do? They move down to the lower altitude because they will have to find their place based on the climatic conditions and the season of the year. In the same manner, other animals will also have to migrate from lower altitude to higher altitude, one place to another, one to adjust with the changing season, the other one is to find food. So in such cases, we need a way through which animals can move freely. That free area allocated for free movement of the animals, we call it as biological corridor. In simple term, you can also understand it as a road connecting two places. For example, we have road between Thimphu and Punakha. If this road is blocked somewhere, the car from Thimphu cannot go to Punakha and the car from Punakha cannot go to Thimphu. In the same manner, if the protected areas are not connected through biological corridors, the movement of the animals will be restricted. Thereby, number one, the animal will not be able to get enough food and the animal might die out of starvation. Second reason, when there is a change in season, the animals will not be able to move based on the body requirement, the temperature requirement. So these are the reasons for which we need the biological corridors and the protected areas.
Other important aspect that we should not forget is breeding. There are many animals which move around, which change places in search of the mates, especially during the mating season. If there are no biological corridors, then we restrict their movements, due to which the breeding, or in other terms, reproduction becomes very less. And when that happens, the population of that particular species comes down. And we know every species has an important role to play in the ecosystem. So altogether, if you look at, if there are no biological corridors, it will hamper reproduction. And when it hampers reproduction, it actually hampers the stability of the ecosystem. As we studied about biodiversity, conservation, and a lot of important things about the nature and environment, now I would like you to do something. So here are 3 important questions for you to develop your understanding on environment and biodiversity. Firstly, how does the policy of high value, low volume in tourism sector contribute towards conservation of biodiversity? High value, low volume tourism has been a very prominent policy in our country. So you need to do a little research to get the answer for that. Second one, can you make a report on how we Bhutanese depend on biodiversity? And the third one, make an inventory of activities in your community that promotes or that helps in conservation of biodiversity. That's all about the lesson today. I hope you all learned quite a lot. Thank you for paying attention for the lesson.